Hi, hello, good morning everyone. I'm Dr. Harika Kishore. On behalf of Vista's Learning, I'm here as your biology educator. V-Learning, it's an online education platform which works with an ideology of providing quality education for all. Visit our website www.v-learning.in where you're going to get an access for all the live classes, recorded sessions, study materials and also concept videos. Moreover, you're going to get this lecture notes in the form of PDFs. Don't forget to get your acquaintance with all the channels available and subscribe to the channel Vista's Learning Class 11 and 12. If you find this session useful and interesting, make sure that you click on the like and share this session with your friends. And also click on the bell icon so that you are going to get all the upcoming video notifications. Now, let's start our today's session. So, in the series of the session, we have been discussing about the chapter environmental issues that comes under the unit ecology, right? Today's class, let's discuss about the effects that are coming from the excessive usage of agrochemicals. We are well aware of green revolution, and green revolution contributed a lot to improve crop production. It resulted in improved intensive farming, intensive crop production. But parallelly, it also encourages the uses of chemical fertilizers, and therefore the inorganic fertilizers usage leads to so many adverse conditions. So that is what we discussed under the heading that is called as agrochemicals and their effects. So here, in the wake of green revolution, that means in the emerge of green revolution, which contributed a lot for the enhanced crop production, for the improved crop production, use of inorganic fertilizers, chemical fertilizers as well as pesticides has increased manifold, means many times, several times or various ways. This usage of inorganic fertilizers are going to show their effects in the form of causing a damage to the living organisms. So how it is going to show this damage towards the living organisms, let's discuss. So here, as we already said, that the usage of agrochemicals, say in the form of pesticides, or it may be in the form of herbicides, or it may be in the form of fertilizers, or it may be in the form of fungicides. All these have been increasingly used, intensely used. The usage of all these agrochemicals increases manyfold in order to achieve our goal, that is called as enhancement in the crop production during green revolution. Now, let's see. So whatever the used agrochemicals, as they are agrochemicals that were used during the green revolution, as they are not target specific, they show its toxicity, they show its toxic effect even on the non-targeted organisms. Along showing its harmful towards the targeted organisms, the usage of these agrochemicals, as they are not target specific, they start showing their impact, that is a deteriorating condition towards the non-targeted organisms also. So here, this incidentally are also toxic. It shows its toxic effect towards non-targeted organisms, that that they are very important component of soil ecosystem. We know that each and every organisms are very, very important to maintain the equilibrium, to maintain the balance of an ecosystem. If one species has been decreased in their number, it is definitely showing its effect. It is definitely showing its negative effect towards the balancing of the ecosystem, no matter whether it is soil ecosystem or terrestrial ecosystem or water ecosystem. So here, the main point here to make you understand is that the usage of these agrochemicals are not target based, are not target specific. Therefore, this shows its target effect towards the organisms which are targeted and also towards organisms which are not targeted. So, do you think that these can be biomagnified in the terrestrial ecosystem? Definitely. As we are discussing about biomagnification, biomagnification is nothing but accumulation of the chemical substances at one level. Then this concentration is going to be magnified if it reaches to the next trophic level. That is, say for example, terrestrial ecosystem, we know, very well know that terrestrial ecosystem starts with the grass, herbivores, that is a cattle, and this cattle to the human beings. In the simple terrestrial ecosystem, let's understand there is a deposition of the chemical that takes place in the grasses, that is herbivores, that is plants, producers, what we call it as a. Now, this producers, whatever the amount of the accumulated chemical, when it is taken by the next trophic level, say for example herbivores, it is going to reach at an increased concentration when it is going to reach to the next trophic level. From there, when it is reaching to the next trophic level, the concentration of the accumulated chemical substances keeps on increasing, keeps on magnified. That is what we call it as a biomagnification. And the same thing, it also leads to some this usage of this chemicals, organic chemicals. While it is used in the agricultural lands, there is much more chances of runoff this agriculture wastes, and this waste will enter into the water bodies, where the entry of this runoff into the water bodies may cause immediate enhancement of the nutrients and the vitamins, and thereby it leads to the, that means nutrients of that water bodies keeps on increasing. That is what we call it as a eutrophication, and because of this eutrophication, it leads to algal blooms which traps the solar light not to reach to the bottom of the water bodies, thereby causing the death of the fishes, and also that is the aging of the water bodies and accelerates, that means increases, that what we consider as a eutrophication. These are all the negative effects of the usage of this agrochemicals. One is biomagnification, and also this chemical substances reaches from the lands. Say for example, these are the lands where agriculture is taking place, crops, right? And the usage of the agrochemicals here first reaches land to water. Which leads to eutrophication. So here, through the runoff, these pollutants are going to pollute water bodies also. Through the process of leaching, penetration, we can also find the seepage of this pollutants, and it reaches to the groundwater resources. Thereby, from the water to the groundwater resources, the pollutants are transferred from land to water, water to underground resources, thereby polluting all the water bodies, right? So here, yes, biomagnification is taking place because of the excessive utilization of these agrochemicals. Then what is a solution for all these problems, like excessive usage of the agrochemicals, which leads to the pollution of the land, not only land, the pollutants also transfer to the water bodies, not only to the water bodies, it also leaches and reaches to the groundwater resources and also polluting the groundwater resources. The solution for all these things, maybe we can find the usage of organic fertilizers instead of using chemical fertilizers. So, we know what the addition of increased amount of chemical fertilizers. These chemical fertilizers, usage of the increased chemical fertilizers is going to show its effect towards the aquatic ecosystem also by the means of eutrophication, can do to the aquatic ecosystem vis-a-vis with regard to regard to with respect to eutrophication. Eutrophication is the immediate enhancement of the nutrients that are present in the water body, and thereby the surface is surrounded by the algae, which leads to the algal blooms, which blocks the entry of the sunlight to the bottom layers of the water body, thereby causing the suffocation, thereby causing the death of the aquatic organisms. Now, the current problem in agriculture are therefore extremely grave, which means depth. It is an elusive word to make you to understand the problem is the present at what level that is going to happen to the agriculture. Now, so taking a thought of how to prevent all these problems that were created by the excessive usage of the agrochemicals, let's discuss about a case study of organic farming. The only solution is using very as much as possibly less inorganic fertilizers, that is the chemical fertilizers, and replacing the use of this chemical fertilizers with the organic farming. For that, one of the best solution is to employ integrated organic farming. As we already know, integrated is nothing but the coordination of more than two processes. Like here, it's a cyclic procedure where it leads to a cyclical zero waste procedure where waste product of one process, for example, here is the like practice procedure, and that is called as integrated organic farming. Integrated organic farming is nothing but the processes are more, maybe like more than two processes are taking place at a time, such that the waste products which are coming from one process will act as a nutrients for the second process, such that it will be in a cyclic form, cyclical, and as the waste which is coming from one process are being used as a nutrients for the other process, there is a zero wastage, and it is more economical, more effective, efficient method. So here, the waste products of one process, consider that this is the first process. The waste which is coming from the one process will be acting as a nutrients for the second process. Same way, the waste which is coming from the second process will act as the nutrients for the third process. And the same way, there is no wastage as it is happening in a cyclic manner. Zero wastage, cost effective, more efficient method. So here, where waste products from one process are cycled in as nutrients for the other processes. And here, this allows the maximum utilization of the nutrition and maximum utilization of the resources, and also it increases the efficiency of production. The productivity will be more by employing integrated organic farming. Let's understand what are the processes that takes place parallelly to employ this integrated organic farming. Now, here is a worth mentioning, and he is Ramesh Chandra Dhagar, a farmer in Sonipat, Haryana. He is doing this integrated organic farming, where he include more than one, that means more than two processes. What are they? That processes includes beekeeping, dairy management, animal husbandry, that means cattle, water harvesting, composting, agriculture. See, these are all the different processes, but all these processes are employed at a time, and that is what we call it as an integrated coordination of all the processes. Integrated organic farming. As we already mentioned that the products which are coming, the waste products which are coming from one product, one process will be acted as a nutrients for the second processes. Just to make you understand that whatever the agriculture waste which is coming, that is crop waste, like debris, plants, leaves, grass, that can be used as a feed for cattle to maintain dairy management, right? And the beekeeping, as we already know, these bees are good pollinating agents, and these pollinating agents will be helpful for the crop in turn. And whatever the dung, excreta that are coming from the cattle, that can be used as a manure to improve the crops in the agriculture. So these are all where the processes are interlinked and it is happening in a cyclic manner, and that is what the waste products which are coming from the one product, one process will be useful as a nutrients for the other processes, so thereby it is so cost effective and cyclic zero wastage procedure. So here this all these processes will happen in a chain of processes, right, which supports each other. Here one process is supporting another process, and therefore one process waste product can be used as a nutrient, can be recycled, and it can be used as a nutrients for the next process, and allow an extremely economic, cost effective and sustainable venture. Sustainable means long run, long term venture. So here there is no need to use chemical fertilizers here, because whatever the cattle dung, gobar, can be used as a manure, to improve the crop production in the agriculture. And whatever the grass that is coming, we can use it as a feed for feeding the cattle to maintain dairy management, right? Now, this crop waste that is coming from the agriculture is used to create compost, which is a manure again, which can be used as a natural fertilizer. That means we are replacing the use of the chemical fertilizers that happens in the usage of agrochemicals. Here, this crop waste can be used as the natural fertilizers or can be used to generate the natural gas, biogas, natural gas, biogas. So, and this energy which is coming natural by the means of the production of the natural gas can be useful to meet the demands of the farming. So that is how we can understand how this integrated organic farming will work out, where it coordinates different processes, and these processes which includes beekeeping, agriculture, dairy management, and all these things where it happens in a chain, such that the waste which is coming from one process will be used as a nutrients for the other process. Now here, and also as we already mentioned, he spreads the information and encourages the remaining farmers also, made them to understand the importance of this integrated organic farming, and he established a welfare club. Dagar established a welfare club, and that is Haryana Kisan Welfare Club, with a current membership of 5,000 farmers. Now, so here, moving on to, let's now understand about radioactive waste. Not only solid waste, the waste will also generate from the radioactive. So initially it was thought like the nuclear energy was hailed as a non-polluting way, was addressed, was considered as a non-polluting way of generating electricity. But they later realized that the pollution can also create by this nuclear energy. So here, later on, it was realized that the use of this nuclear energy has a very severe inherited problems, have two very serious inherited problems. And what are these two inherited problems that are coming by the usage of this nuclear energy as a nuclear energy as a source of energy? Now, out of two, the first one is the accidental leakage. If you use this nuclear energy, accidentally, if some leakage happens, it is going to create a very, very adverse problem, because already the nuclear accidents happens in two places. One is 3 Mile Island that happens in Pennsylvania, and the second accident happens in Chernobyl incident. It's a Chernobyl nuclear generating plant which is located in Ukraine. Both in these places, there was an accident that happens due to this excessive emission, excessive exposure towards this radiation. The population over there are suffering a lot. And the second one is regarding the safe disposal of this radioactive waste, the waste which is created by the radioactive substances. Radiation which is coming, that is given off by the nuclear waste, is extremely dangerous, is extremely damaging to the organisms, because it can cause mutations, sudden changes at a very higher rates. It is going to causes mutations, some sudden changes at its gene level, genetic level, and that too, this happens at a very high rate. Exposing to this radiations, no matter whether it is higher doses of radiations or the lower doses of radiations, look at here, at high dosages, this nuclear radiation is lethal, causes death. But at low doses, it creates various disorders. It is going to create a lot of disorders to the organisms. The most frequent of all the being is causing cancer. Exposing to the too much of radiation will cause cancers. Now, therefore, nuclear waste has to be disposed only after proper treatment. And disposing method is also very, very important. Nuclear waste is an extremely potent pollutant, and exposing to this pollutants will cause a severe adverse effect, like for causing so many disorders, and has to be dealt, and it has to be dealt with utmost care, utmost caution. Before disposal, it has to be properly treated, then only it has to be disposed. For that, the disposal has to be happen in this way, where it has been recommended that storage of nuclear waste, that too after sufficient pre-treatment, should be done in a suitable shielded containers, bounded container, shielded container, and that has to be buried within the rocks, and the depth should be always 500 meters, about 500-meter deep below the earth's surface. But this type of disposal of the radioactive waste is meeting a stiff opposition from the public, because the public are afraid of whether if something happens that leads to the leakage of the nuclear waste that are present inside the shielded containers, that is going to pollute the underground water reservoirs, as well as soil, land pollution will be resulted. Therefore, this method of disposal also facing a very stiff opposition from the public. Now, okay, now let's discuss about greenhouse effect and global warming. In simple terms, global warming is nothing but heating up of Earth's surface. So here, how the Earth's surface is getting heated up. To understand that, first we need to understand about the greenhouse. So let's start. The term greenhouse effect is just an analogy to make you understand. This greenhouse has been compared with that of the greenhouse effect. And here we know that greenhouses are the glass houses inside which we will produces the crops throughout the year, and particularly the crop production happens during the winter times because the temperatures are very less outside. Because of that reason, we are growing the crops inside the greenhouse. So here, the term greenhouse effect has been derived from a phenomenon that occurs in the greenhouse. Now let's understand about greenhouse. Have you ever seen a greenhouse? It just looked like a small glass house. The walls and the roof part is made up of glass in this type of greenhouses. And it is used to grow plants, especially during winters, because in the winters outside temperature is very less. So here, as we are using this glass houses for growing the plants, what happens? This greenhouses, in a greenhouse, the glass panel where the walls and the roof of the greenhouse are made of glass, these glass panels let the sunlight to come inside, but it will not allow to go outside. That means it will trap the sunlight inside itself, such that the trapped sunlight will increases the temperature, and that increased warmed temperatures favors the growth of the plants that are present inside the greenhouse. So here, the glass panel let the light in but doesn't allow heat to escape. As the heat cannot escape out of this greenhouses, the greenhouse maintains the temperature which is useful to grow the crops, which is useful for the plants to grow. Therefore, the greenhouse warms up. Very much like inside the car that has been parked in the sun for a few hours, right? So here, that is okay. How it is compared to the to explain the greenhouse effect to explain the global warming. The same way, where the greenhouse will trap the light and it will not allow the heat to escape. Here also what is happening is the greenhouse effect is a naturally occurring phenomena that is responsible for heating of the earth's surface. As in which case, where the greenhouse is trapping the sunlight and therefore it is resulting in the warming up of the inside temperature that happens in the greenhouse. Here also there is a heating up of the earth's surface that is happening, and atmosphere, that is earth's atmosphere. Now, how the surface of the earth is being heated up? Let's understand. You would be surprised to know that without greenhouse effect. See, we know that the greenhouse effect are resulting in the warming up of the earth's surface, in the warming up of the earth's atmosphere. But it is having its own importance, because without this greenhouse effect means the earth's surface is not heating up. The earth's atmosphere is not heating up. It is not warming up. In that case, the average temperature of the earth's surface would be very chilly, and that is minus 18 degrees centigrade, at which organisms cannot exist, rather than the present average temperature of the earth's surface is 15 degrees centigrade, which supports the life. This is advantage. But if the greenhouse effect is still raising up, then only the temperatures also raises, which causes the warming up of the polar regions and warming up of the cooler regions, such that the ice caps which are present are going to melt up. Now, in order to understand the greenhouse effect, it is necessary to know the fate of the energy of sunlight. Let's understand. Consider this is a Earth surface. So here, while the sunlight is coming and it is reaching the earth, the light which is received, or the energy, the sun energy which is received by the clouds as well as by the gases, they will not retain it, they will re-emit it. So here the clouds and the grasses re-emit and the gases reflects about 1/4 of the incoming solar radiation. About 1/4 of whatever incoming solar radiation will be reflected by the clouds as well as gases. Unlike and absorb some of it. It will absorb only little of the solar radiation which is coming from the sun, and 1/4 of the incoming solar radiation will be reflected back. So here, but almost half of the incoming solar radiations which are falling on the Earth's surface, heating it, while a very small portion is reflected back. Here, about half of the incoming solar radiation will be used to heat up the Earth's surface, and some portion will also get reflected from here. Half of the part of incoming solar radiation will be used up to heat up the Earth's surface, while the remaining small portion will be reflected back. Now, this reflected will be the reflection of the solar radiation is in the form of infrared radiation. Let's understand here. That is re-emitted, which is reflected. The Earth's surface re-emit heat in the form of infrared radiation. Infrared radiation. See, this is the Earth's surface. Earth is receiving solar energy. Half of the incoming solar energy will be used up to heat the Earth's surface, while the small portion will be reflected. Well, the small portion of the heat will be reflected, and that is in the form of infrared radiation, which can't be escaped into the space. This infrared radiation, but part of this does not escape into the space. Then where it is going? As the atmospheric gases absorb a major fraction of it. So whatever the reflected infrared radiation that is coming from the Earth's surface, small part of it, the complete part cannot be escaped into the space, but small fraction of the whatever coming infrared radiation are observed by some of the gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and these gases popularly called as greenhouse gases. The molecules of these gases again radiate heat energy. It will generate heat energy, and a major part of which again comes to the Earth's surface, thus heating it up once again. Now, see, this is the incoming solar radiation, right? So, whatever the incoming solar radiation, half of its part is useful to heat up the Earth's surface already. Then the remaining portion will be just released. That means reflected back. It is reflected back, and that heat is reflected in the form of infrared radiation. The infrared radiation which is reflected from the Earth's surface will not completely escape into the space, where a small portion of this infrared radiation is absorbed by carbon dioxide and methane, what we call it as a greenhouse gases. Now this gas molecule will radiate the heat energy, and that heat energy will again come to the Earth's surface. Right? From sun to earth first. Some part is useful to heat up the earth surface, and the remaining part will be reflected as an infrared radiation. This infrared radiation is absorbed by the carbon dioxide as well as methane. Now the molecules of these gases again radiates heat, and this heat will hit the earth surface, which will be resulted in heating it up once again. Right? Now, so this is the diagram which will given in your NCERT textbook. All this just now we discussed. So here, this is the relative contribution of various greenhouse gases to the total global warming, heating up of the Earth's surface. So the major percentage is the carbon dioxide, which accounts for 60%, 20% of methane, 14% of CFC, and nitric oxide. So here, these are the different gases which will absorb the infrared radiation that is coming from the Earth's surface. So here, sun, first the solar energy hits the surface of the Earth, where some part of it is reflected back in the form of infrared radiation, and this infrared radiation is absorbed by the greenhouse gases, which radiates the heat energy, and this heat energy again reaches the Earth's surface, which will be useful to heat up the Earth once again, such that the surface of the Earth is heating up again and again. So here, greenhouse gases absorbs long wavelength, that is infrared radiation from the Earth. This is what happening here, and emit it again towards the Earth. The cycle continues till the Earth's surface has no longer infrared radiation to emit. So this is what the greenhouse gases just now we discussed, like carbon dioxide, methane, chlorocarbons, right? Now, this cycle repeats many times. The above mentioned gases, that is the carbon dioxide and methane, are commonly considered as greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, because they are responsible for causing greenhouse effect. So this is how, to make you understand what is happening in the greenhouse effect, it is compared with a greenhouse. Greenhouse is a glass made house where the glass panel will allow the entry of the sunlight, but it will trap the heat which is generated by the sunlight. Right. So the same effect here also happening. That is what we take the analogy to understand the concept of greenhouse effect, which contributes a lot for the warming up of the globe, that is global warming. Now, so this increased level of greenhouse gases, chlorofluorocarbons, methanes, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxides, these are all the together we can consider it them as a greenhouse gases, has led to considerable heating up of Earth, and that leads to global warming. Right? So now, during the past century, particularly during past 3 decades, the temperature of the Earth has increased by 0.6%. If this situation continues at the same rate happening, it is going to lead to the further heating up of the Earth's surface, which further contributes to the global warming. Most of it happens during last 3 decades. Now, Scientists believe that this rise in temperature is leading to deleterious, deleterious changes that is happening in the climate as well as that is happening in the environment and resulting in odd climatic changes and results in a odd climatic changes, and this effect is called as El Nino effect. This leading to increase melting of the polar ice caps as well as other places which includes Himalayan snow caps. All this melting of this polar ice caps as well as the Himalayan snow caps over many years, this will result in rise in the sea level because this is melting. Therefore, it leads to the rise in the sea level that can submerge many of the coastal areas. This is the ultimate effect that is going to be happened by the global warming. As we understand the negative effects that are coming from the global warming, what measures can we take from our side to reduce the global warming? So here, the total spectra of changes that global warming can bring about is a subject. It still is a subject that is under active research. Still, we need to understand more about the adverse conditions that are coming from the global warming. How can we control this global warming? Yeah, there are so many adverse effects like the rise in the sea level, and it is going to submerge the coastal areas itself. The measures which includes, definitely we have to reduce deforestation, and deforestation should be encouraged, and that is the planting of the new plants. And also we have to reduce the usage of the fossil fuels such that the levels of the carbon dioxide in the environment can be maintained. Look at here, cutting down or reducing the usage of fossil fuel which will release the carbon dioxide into the environment, and improving efficiency of energy usage, reducing deforestation, encouraging afforestation, planting trees, and slowing down the growth of human population. Have to check on the increasing, ever-rising human population. We have to keep in control. Now, international initiatives. International initiatives are also working a lot in order to understand what are the measures that can be taken to control this global warming, are also being taken to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases into the environment, into the atmosphere. Thereby, if the greenhouse gases concentration is lessened, reduced in the atmosphere, we can reduce the heating up of the Earth's surface. Thereby, we can reduce the global warming. Yeah, that is it. So in this class, we understand about the radioactive waste as well as greenhouse effect and global warming. Meet you in the next session. Until then, keep learning with We Learning. Thank you.